Good morning and welcome to the Really Helpful Club and to our In Conversation series. I'm Sarah Austin, and this is where we shine the spotlight on different entrepreneurs, business owners, experts in their field. And I'm delighted that this morning I'm going to be joined by Helen Pritchard. Helen is the owner and founder of Orchid Digital. I'm really excited to have Helen with me this morning. And Helen has done, I think, pretty much all the videos for Really Helpful Club, and can't recommend her more highly. Great to see lots of you joining us, so thanks for that. Helen's going to be on screen shortly. And good morning, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well. That was very quick, wasn't it? I didn't even have a chance to explain what our In Conversation series is about. I gave a little snippet whilst you weren't there, as it were. I was able to say that you've done all our videos for the Really Helpful Club website, and what I wasn't able to quite get to was to say that we couldn't recommend you more highly and love working with Helen. So it's a pure pleasure and a great honour and privilege to have you with us. Now, bear with me, Helen. 2 secs. I realise I always write lots of notes during these things, and I realise I haven't even got a pencil with me. So that was the first first error I've made. Anyway, great to see a few people joining us. We've got Helen Pritchard with us this morning. Helen is the owner and founder of Orchid Digital, and really pleased to hear her story. Now, if you've worked with Helen or you've used her services in some way and you want to share an insight, a story, a testimonial about her, this is a great opportunity for you to be able to do that. So do pop it in the comments box. But the other thing is that I know Helen is incredibly generous with her time and her services and how she helps people. So you might have a question that you want to ask her, either about her services or about a particular difficulty you're having with video and so forth in your business. So this is also your opportunity to pop that into the chat box. So Helen, first of all, welcome. Great to have you on board.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I must admit, I'm a little bit nervous in front of the camera. That's why I'm always behind it. But I'll do my best.
This is like, you could say, except I don't really mean this, this could be revenge time, couldn't it? Because this is my chance to ask you the questions. you could say that, but I'm not gonna comment. Oh, here we go. Nice comment coming already. I've had the pleasure of doing some extras work for Helen, so that's great. So somebody that you have worked with. So Tammy, thanks for sharing that. Fantastic. So Helen, I mean, I feel we've worked together a long time. I've known you a long time, but actually, I'm not sure we've really ever talked about you at the beginnings. I know you've done all sorts of things. You worked in great organisations, highly skilled, etc. But this is your chance to kind of tell us in your own words your story, your background. Where did it all begin? What took you into the video industry? Tell us a bit about Helen and where it all started.
Okay. Well, it goes back quite a while. So
we've got time.
Okay, if we've got time. It goes back to about 2002. I started off primarily in radio. So I was a co-host for a local hospital radio. This is how it all started. And my initial thought was I wasn't interested in working in media initially. I always wanted to be a vet randomly.
Well, I do know we might get to talk about your lovely dog as well in a minute, but I do know you are dotty about dogs, as am I.
I'm very much an animal person. But yeah, so I initially started off wanting to work with animals, but I went to a career fair and my dad said to me, how about you just happen to look at the media table and see what it's all about? So I went along and I thought, actually, it's not bad. They were advertising, I can't remember what they're doing, making some advert up. And anyway, so I started making lots of movies at home with my sister, dragging her into all my home movie video productions. We used to do like comedy sketches of all sorts of things, and my mum actually still has the tape of quite a lot of those, which maybe one day I might release on YouTube. Who knows? So it did start back then. Went into hospital radio, and I met a guy there who said, I run a course over at the Farnborough Tech. It's a 3-year degree course. Would you be interested in perhaps looking at it? It's a media technology course, I think they called it back then. And yeah, I did this course for 3 years. And whilst I was there on the course, I started getting into more different kinds of productions. So one of my first, I suppose, my major jobs was a radio editor for BBC Premiership Radio, and my job was to actually edit all the content live whilst the shows were going out. So it was quite a high pressure job at such a young age, but I learned that actually working in live productions was kind of my thing. It kind of gets the adrenaline pumping a little bit kind of situation. So I found this love for live productions and live telly and live radio, and obviously radio, and yeah, I went into from there I went into live TV as a camera op and sound op, and we did lots of everything. We learned how to light the TV studio. We learned, you know, like all the workings basically you could think of in a TV studio. So I kind of learnt my craft there on the job, as well as having the degree course behind me. And then I just kind of bounced from one production to another. You know, once you start working for one thing, you then go on to the next thing. And I was working for all sorts of different shows. America's Next Top Model was a memorable one. When all the models came over here to London for a couple of weeks, my job was to stay up at the Savoy Hotel with them for 2 weeks solid. I can tell you that probably drained me for like a whole month from the stress of doing that job. But no, it's all good fun. I've always loved the experiences that I've had. I think some of my favourite ones have been when I've been in producer roles in London, working for music channels and working within film areas. So I got to meet a lot of music stars, a lot of film stars. I spent my time in the back of most of it in the back of a taxi, traveling from one part of London to another with my camera equipment. But it was a pleasure just to go out, make a really creative video piece or EPK or whatever I was making that day, and then come back to the office and edit it. And that's what I loved. I loved the fast-paced environment of almost like this news environment. And then I suppose, to sort of cut a very long story short, I then progressed from there. I was made redundant in 2008, so I looked at other ways I could utilise my skills. So I went into the telecoms industry, producing web content, I suppose, and I worked for quite a few telecoms companies. And then after that, I started Orchid Digital in 2012 now. So, wow, it's been a very long time in my own company. And I have the pleasure of working with so many great people and on so many great things. I still work in TV every now and again. I still get to make fantastic web videos for small companies and large companies. And more recently, I've been starting to get more into film and writing for kind of like more high-end productions. And the hope is next year as well, I'm going to be writing a short film, which I hope we're just looking for a source of money. We can go on and produce that. So, yeah.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, isn't there? And I think, you know, it's there's some really, really interesting things that you shared there. And I think, I mean, often when I'm interviewing different business owners within our network, what seems to be resonating with me is, well, I started down this path, and then actually that chapter closed because I took a break from work for whatever reason, maybe to raise a family or to, be a carer or whatever. I think what's really interesting listening to you, Helen, is how, you were about to embark on this life, to study towards, veterinary sciences and stuff and things, and which would have been amazing. And I know, you would have had a calling there too. But this is how you found your mojo. You found your spark really early on in your career. And so I think for people who are listening, watching this, who may be embarking on their first career, entering the workforce, maybe people have got sort of young adults who are thinking about what they can do. This is really interesting to me, because this is how, you know, you thought you were going to do one thing and then actually something triggered this off, and you have gone down this route, believed in it, because that must have been quite something to not go down that sort of more vocational path, as it were, and to end up in film, and then to, you know, to change sector, industry, but within the same, you know, the same level of expertise, as it were. I think is really interesting. It shows to me how what it can be for someone when they can really find their spark and chase their dream, and then develop that over the course of their career path. So I find that really interesting to share. And so, I mean, we'll sort of dig down a little bit deeper in a minute about, you know, what it is that you find so rewarding. But you know, here you are. You've worked in different industries, different sectors, and as you say, that sort of contrast of the sort of the high octane, the live environment, and then the more, you know, back in the studio, editing, turning out the, you know, the end product. So let's now move on to Orchid Digital, and what was the inspiration to launch your own business? So to step away from, you know, your freelancing, etc., but you were still within some of the, I guess, the support and security blanket of an industry. So what made you take that leap to start your own business?
If I'm honest, I thought about starting my own business for quite a few years before I actually started the business. It was always in the back of my mind. I think at the point of where it really sort of occurred to me was I was working for a company where I wasn't feeling like 100% job satisfaction from it. You know, like it was a great job, and don't get me wrong, it was a permanent role, brilliant job, brilliant salary. I really could have, you know, done something with that. But at the time, I always felt like there was something I had to do, like extra. And I think it was mainly around video. I was always trying to bring video elements of it into my role at this particular place I was working. And there's parts I could have done, but it wasn't every day. And I always just had, funnily enough, I kept dreaming the same dream of me going out and making these videos like I had done back in the past. And I think my mind just was like, I'm missing my old life back in London where I was making all this video content. The job that I happened to be in wasn't that kind of role. And then something triggered, without going too much into it, I wasn't happy at work. And there was a trigger overnight, basically. And I came back home one evening, said to my husband, I'm literally going to like start my business tomorrow. I'm not happy at work. I'm just going to quit. And I had to remember at the time, you know, we've got a mortgage, you know, I've got all these responsibilities. But I was so passionate about trying to start this business. I thought, if I don't take the plunge, it's never going to happen. I'm always going to be like, oh, what if I stay? Or so rather than holding myself back, I literally wrote a very short business plan in my notebook. Went down the next day to set up a company bank account. That afternoon, I found myself an accountant who was brilliant, and she sort of helped me find other networking groups and things. I set the whole thing up over the course of like 3 days. And I quit my job within that time as well. And I actually said to them, you're going to hire me back as my, I said to them really cheeky, you're going to hire me back for a month to train up my replacement. And do you know what they did? And it gave me the cash flow to put that into cameras and all my editing equipment, which was really handy. And yeah, I just totally went for it. I couldn't believe it. And that's how it started. So the inspiration was, so I've always had the feeling there, but I felt there was a trigger. There's always got to be an end catalyst, isn't there? Trigger point, I think. And that was my trigger.
It's so interesting. And again, to me, for people listening and thinking about, you know, again, sort of thinking, I think earlier on in your career path, but even, you know, people put up with a lot, as it were, but it's it's aligning your values, being true to yourself, and your values weren't being met. I think is where you were going with this, and you can put up with a lot, not least because, you know, as you rightly point out, liabilities, your mortgage, and so forth. You know, these are real serious things that you have to be aware of, and you can't just walk away from something without, you know, giving it a lot of thought. But one of the things that we always sort of talk about at Really Help the Club is courage comes before confidence, and you showed huge courage there in terms of making that leap, and then the speed with which you then did it. But then that confidence that came with having taken that step out, almost from, you know, to be able to look back in, as it were, and be able to say to your former employer, I will be coming in on a day rate to, you know, to train up my successor, shows huge confidence that I'm prepared to bet came because you took that leap. You had the courage to go for it. So you knew that you could, you were confident in your skill set, but you were confident in your decision as well. And so I think that is really, really interesting. So thanks for sharing that.
That's okay.
So tell us a bit about Orchid Digital then, and the services you offer, and who they're for. Oh, here we go. I like this comment. Thank you very much, Wimbledon First Aid, aka Jen. Courage mixed with a little craziness. Well, yeah, but you know, show me someone that doesn't quite, you know, take that leap and has to be bold, and you know, if you don't believe in it, and if you're not a bit sort of you know, have that courage to leap, then, you know, who's going to? So look, tell us a bit about the range of what you offer, because if I'm, you know, if I'm watching this, and we get a lot of small business owners watching these interviews, either now or afterwards, of course you share this across, you know, all our social media channels, is what is it that you offer, and how can you help people?
So I initially, when I started the business, I called it Orchid Digital for a reason, because I didn't want to limit myself just to provide video content and just video content. I wanted to provide something that was digital content. Primarily, yes, we do provide video, but it became then so much more than that. Lots of clients then started asking for animation, which is another service we provide. Training as well, which is a big area that we now do, and I personally take on. So the main services are video production, of course, and that can be for SMEs and large corporate companies. And then we provide animations, although I'd say our last animation was probably about a month ago. So we kind of go through waves of animations. Sometimes we're very, very busy with animation, and then sometimes I might go for a month or two without anything with the animation side. But that's one thing that we do. And then the other side is as I say, the training in terms of, well, you know, if you're a small business owner, for example, can you give me some training on how to be confident in front of the camera, or how to set up a proper, you know, like your camera gear, and how to present, perhaps. So that's mixed in with occasionally some illustration and voiceover production as well. But those areas I don't tend to overly advertise. It's strange. I primarily advertise video production, but I think because of my background and my skill set, I've also been lucky enough to provide other kinds of digital content, which kind of just fallen into place along the way. So yeah, that's what we do, and we're very happy to give advice to people. I'm very happy to have, you know, a quick 20-minute chat with someone if they're really in desperate need of wanting to know something. I spend a lot of my time, and you know, I give a lot of my time away for free as well, because I think actually one thing about being a small business owner is that you should support other small business owners. And if that is in terms of just giving them a little bit of advice on something and it's going to help them, then why not? And I always find that those people then eventually, if they're thinking of having video production on a larger scale, or they want to spend money behind editing or whatever it is, they tend to think and then come back as well, because yeah, it's good relationship building, and I'm passionate about it.
Well, again, having worked with you for so long, I completely could recommend every one of those services, whether it is being interviewed behind the, with you behind the camera, knowing that you're videoing an event or a conference or something that's important to us, just knowing that you are capturing those really important and special moments, I think is so important. And because it's the assets that you have afterwards. It's, you are, if you're there in the room, you can feel it, you can enjoy it, you can be part of it, but you need to be reminded later on about, to evoke those special feelings. But I also think to tell other people who missed out on something just how important it was. So, we're big fans of what you do, and I completely understand what you're saying in terms of that, how much you give away, but give away with that sense of paying it forward. So it I think really generates that huge sense of loyalty, it's trust, so that it's unquestionable when you then are in a position to to actually properly employ your services, Helen. It's just no question. You know who you're working with, a consummate professional. So we have no hesitation with working with you. So so I guess in that, what do you think makes Orchid unique? Because there's a lot of other videographers out there, and we meet videographers all the time, and you're sort of thinking, well, what do you do that's different from Helen, or what does Helen do that's different from you, and what do you think do you capture that makes it special?
Well, I wouldn't say it's not necessarily a unique skill, but where we excel, this is what I'd like to sort of say, is where we excel is that we work with more of an open mind. So we take on ideas from a client. We have a lot of planning around a specific topic. I've worked a lot, for example, in the medical industry, and rather than just going one day, a client calls up, can you film this? And rather than just going on with the camera and filming it, I actually put planning into that. So I speak to the client, well, what is it that you want to get out of this video? Because at the end of the day, video has to have a meaning behind it. You shouldn't make video just for video's sake. You should have a context behind it, and it should speak to someone directly. And this is how it's going to be most effective. So where we really excel is finding out what that client is, who the client's really speaking to, and how do we get it across in an interesting way, which isn't then going to get absorbed into all these videos that are being made, because there's so many videos being made. You want to really stand out, so that way we can communicate more effectively if we make something more thought. So that's what I would say, I suppose, makes Orchid Digital special.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's not just a production. It's telling a story. It's bringing to life the ethos, the values, the people, the message behind that company, that small business, that event, and that's really important. And I think that tells and evokes so much in in the ultimate production. So look, I guess what's interesting is how you've adapted to changing environment, changing business needs of your clients. Because of course, because you were involved in the world of live production, when the pandemic hit and effectively everything that was sort of live got taken away from us, what changed in your market, and what are the lasting changes that you're now sort of embedded into your business?
Yeah, if I'm honest, when it hit, like lots and lots of companies, all my jobs practically overnight. I started to notice the first one when they first started talking about pandemic and everything and this COVID, people were getting nervous, so I had dropouts, and I thought, okay, just see how it goes. And then of course, once lockdown hit, everything just went, of course. Luckily at the time, actually, I was producing an animation for a large pharmaceutical company over in Europe, and I was their main voice artist for that. So I had work which got me through. In terms of services, I suppose I saw an increase in animation that went up, definitely, because you can get out and film. And then I started to see changes where, for example, small businesses where I had previously produced the videos for them, they found the time at that point to then started training themselves up in front of the camera and doing it themselves, which they're very successful at. So how it's changed is now small business owners still love the advice and the confidence and the training side from me. In terms of the actual producing the content, that's probably decreased a little bit. Not to say it's not around, it still is, but I'm just noticing the ones that I had worked with previously aren't there anymore because they're doing it themselves, and that's great. You know, it just changes, and that's and through COVID that pushed them forward to do that. So I found that there was more value in actually training people. I started training also. I worked with a company that trains estate agents, so that really increased. I started to work more heavily within the estate agency business as well, which I still do. And also then I got more into live stream. So whereas you can take a camera and live stream out to all these people sat at home, like now it's a live stream, but you know, effectively when then we do it just with bigger equipment, you know, kind of thing, but it's still live stream. So I noticed that started to change. So it's strange. It has changed, and I amazingly and thankfully, I'm so grateful. I was still so busy over those 2 years, and it's just all kind of falling into place, and I'm finding myself doing slightly different things, but it's still good.
And just on that, actually, where it went from sort of to live stream, where has it got to now? Is it hybrid where these things have got to, or what's most of the demand coming from?
I think live stream was huge over the pandemic because I was working with companies that did a lot of live stream for their clients as well. So assisting that. Yeah, it's kind of. What was the question again? Sorry.
So, well, good. So that's a test in itself. So hybrid. More and more clients now saying, actually, Helen, we'd like to live stream it, but we'd also like to video it. We'd like to, like you to do a bit of a mix and match of everything.
A mix now. There's definitely a mix now. So there's less live stream now because obviously everyone's out and together again. But you do find that the hybrid still happens because there was value in taking, if you can live stream out to all your clients around the world and get them all in one place on a platform, that's so much more cost effective than paying for everyone to then go meet in somewhere in London.
Yes, it is. And it's the combination now of the efficiency of the live stream, which, as you say, which is really cost effective, together with, for those who are in a position to, but on a on a lower cost basis, to actually get that in-person, experiential side too, means you get two lots brought together. So the scaled effect, it is really profound. But you go back to that experiential side too, which is, the enriching bit and what we miss, but you don't lose out on the training bit. So, so just sort of turning to you and in terms of your life as running a business. So there you are, where, if you sort of rewind the clock a bit, where you were in the industry, you were working for companies, you handed in your notice, in that 3-day period, off you went, you started your business. It was real, some really strong decisions there. And I know you live, love and breathe what you do, but tell us what you find, maybe it's the most rewarding aspects, or is it the lifestyle aspects, or what do you find that's so rewarding about what you do?
So from a business point of view, I love getting feedback from my clients when they said, oh my God, the video you made was amazing and it's really helping. That's the key word, it's helping my business.
Yeah.
And it's actually bringing in customers for me. So I've been witness to a lot of companies who have initially struggled. I've gone in, I've produced video content with them. And the outcome of that is that now they're starting to see an increase in customers and conversions from this, getting return on their investment. And that's why I do what I do, because I love that. I love helping, especially small business owners. I think I go back to small business owners because it's so personal. Whereas when you work for, working with a corporate company, there's so many people in that company and it's only, do you know what I mean? it's more of an impact when you're working with an individual. But I you know, I love both aspects of it. But yeah, the SME side of it, when they give me that feedback, is the reason why I do it. The other side of a business for me is that, on a personal note, I do get to choose when I work, how I work, you know, the times I work. My husband will tell me off quite often because I'm crazily working at 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes on an edit, or at 4 o'clock in the morning I'm writing scripts for this crazy idea I had, and that's quite often how the last one happened. I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and in about the space of 20 minutes I'd written something. There is never a before, when I first started the business, there wasn't really a cut-off in my brain. Now there is, thankfully. I have more of a structure, but it's massively helped. And I've just loved having a business. It's given me the opportunity to have my dog. You know, when we had Tia, I was able to spend so much time with her. Having Max, our son, he's 4 now, and he's at school today, so he's running around. But yeah, that side of it was brilliant because I could at least run a business and get a little bit of work in whilst I was with him at the same time. So quite often I was like holding this newborn baby on a Zoom call with my clients, you know, so I had the camera there, kind of thing. And yeah, you know, I managed to juggle it, and I wouldn't have been able to do that, I think, if it wasn't for having my own business. And I also got very ill in 2018 when I had Max. And I think, again, if I hadn't had my business, I wouldn't have been able to take as much time off and at least recover from that. So yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to having a business, but more pros.
Well, thank you for sharing that and sharing it so candidly as well. And I think for me, that goes back to something you were saying a bit earlier about aligning those values, your personal values with your business values. And in running your own business, you absolutely are, you know, at one with that. And I think that is, you know, that's so clear in, you know, in the reward that you feel. So if there's anyone here that's watching, thinking about starting their own business, or they're running one, but you know, they'd like to hear some advice from you, Helen, who are sort of 10 years in to running your own business, what advice would you give to someone?
Okay, well, I wrote this down before I've forgotten, but first of all, it's research the industry that you're going into massively, because if you don't research it, then you're going in blind. And I think it's always good to have an idea, at least, of who you're up against, where your competitors, what kind of things are your ideal customers actually looking for, and where do those ideal customers go to look for that particular product or service that you're thinking of doing. And then, you know, like I know it sounds really obvious, but have some sort of cash flow to start with. Yeah. I was lucky, I had that cash flow to start with, to start that business. But you should have something there, because if you don't, so cash flow is the biggest killer, I think they say, for small businesses. And that's the reason why a lot of small businesses kind of go in the first 5 years. And because they can't keep an eye on their cash flow. So I'd say, if you're going to start the business, have a think about having a really good fund of money there that you keep. And then for me, that's really important, because I pay out lots and lots of freelancers all the time. And and if I didn't have that there, I wouldn't be able to survive, literally. The bank's not going to be, do you know what I mean? So I'm going to have to always make sure that my business is running. And then just, I think the last piece of advice is, if you're very passionate about starting a business, my advice is just go for it. Because a lot of people always are trying to make excuses, or not excuses, but always have something of, I can't do this because I've got, you know, whatever it is, I've got a mortgage. And for me, I thought, well, actually, I'm very determined and passionate. I am going to make money, to pay that mortgage. And that's what I did. And I thankfully, I also had the support of my husband as well, but I went for it. And that's the biggest bit of advice. Just go for it, because we're only on this planet a very short time. And yes, you should always just go for
but really useful advice there too. And I think that point about cash flow, again, is so important, because you never know what's around the corner, good and bad. And, you know, we all know the experience of the last 2 to 3 years with the pandemic and now rising costs is, and you're absolutely right about its lack of cash flow, that, you know, when the cash runs out, there's very little that you can do, and that is the ultimate killer. And so being able to plan for that, I think is so important. But combined, as you say, with that, you know, that gut, that heart, that passion, that desire, that is I think really important, but with some really sensible, you know, sort of, I guess, bases from which you can then launch that passion, which is exactly what you've done.
Exactly. I think be brave, be passionate, but do your research, and also get yourself a very good accountant if you can't do the money side yourself. And have people that you and the other thing I forgot to say was delegate as well, because too often do we, as small business owners, we do everything because we think, oh, I'll just save money here or there. And that's exactly how I was in the beginning. And I was doing everything, and I was getting very, very tired and wasn't really concentrating on the things that really mattered. Whereas now I just delegate, and I bring lots and lots of different people in, all walks of life. You know, if they're going to help me on a big production, I've got everyone from makeup artists, extras, actors, you know, cameramen. I have to then bring everything in because I can't do everything myself. And so that's very important. And
it's so true what you say as well about delegating, is because I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks, because as a startup, as a new business, you think, I can't afford to outsource that. And I think, you know, that there's a lot of truth in that, and it's very difficult to delegate something that you're either not good at or don't like doing, or you know, but if once you find yourself in a position to be able to just take some baby steps and be able to liberate some of that time and do the thing that you are good at and generate the extra business or revenue or whatever as a result, then it starts to pay for itself. But it is, I think that's one of the hardest things as a small business owner, to find again, comes back to that courage and confidence thing, but again, tied up with the cash flow thing. So, you know, these are very difficult steps to take, but I think really, really important advice to share. So thank you so much. Now, it's been an absolute pleasure. I always find I learn from you, and because so much of the time, Helen, you're always on the other side of the camera, filming us, chatting to me, and so it's lovely. I mean, it's so brilliant to hear your story and just to hear you share your insights as well. And here you are, you know, 10 years in, 2012, year of the Olympics. You you launched, think of, you know, all that time ago. And what if we're sitting down in a year, 2 years time? What do you think you'll be looking back in the rearview mirror and saying, well, I did that project, or I did this, or, you know, this is where I took the training business, or this is what I did this. If someone asked you, where do you see this going? What's your dream?
I think that where I'm actually at a really good place in my business at the moment, and I've started to realise that producing content which is a little bit different and a little bit crazy actually sometimes works. It fits in with my brain. For example, you know, I started making videos for a local council with another crazy lady, but together we actually made brilliant content. And we were producing, like, for example, we made up a music video from scratch, and we wrote the song, filmed it, and all in the space of a few days, that kind of thing. And I love doing videos like that. I love thinking a little bit different. You know, how do we make this exciting? For example, we're currently producing something for one of my clients where we've got exploding paperwork, and we're going to freeze time. And I never would have thought about that years ago. I was just making you know, go along, you interview someone and you put together a nice looking video. But now I'm really starting to get passionate about making creative video. And I think Orchid Digital definitely going down that route. So I'm very excited to push that more and start marketing that more, because that part of it to me is the really creative part, and that's what people really love. And if you want to keep watching a video again and again because you want to see how they've done a special effects, or it's like a catchy song or something, then that's my aim for business. How do we make it memorable?
Thank you so much for sharing that. Helen, it's a joy to talk to you as ever, and very pleased I grabbed my pencil because I've just written note after note. But for me, you know, what encapsulates that is, you know, it was where you talked about how you love helping small businesses and to make a difference to their business. And to me, that encapsulates absolutely everything that you do. So thank you so much. And as I say to everyone, if you've enjoyed this, you've learned something from this, you've gained something from this, we will share this on our IGTV channel. We're going to share this on our social media channels. Please do contact Helen if you want to find out more about how she can help you. But also please share this amongst your own networks, because there might just be someone where Helen can make a difference to their business. And so Helen, thank you so much for helping us to tell our story.
Very welcome. Thanks, Sarah.